Okay, so for task 4A, we had to create a project or an activity that helps students connect to something greater, something a little more than just basic activity or lesson. And so I was very excited about this one because I like creating projects when I can and I have the time that kind of lean more to this type of thing. Especially, as an art teacher, I want the students to be creative as possible. For this one, I worked with a group of students and I gave them the project of creating a display for a famous artist. And this display, we would create all the pieces to it and put it on one of my bulletin boards where I put up artwork that everyone in the school will see. And so they knew this going into it. They knew that they needed to make it look nice. They knew that they needed to make sure that they had enough information about the artist, so that when people see it, they can understand what it's about. So we picked the artist Vincent van Gogh for this project, and students had to work together for all parts of this project. So there was a lot of collaborative work going on. And one of the first things they had to do was learn more about Vincent van Gogh. So I gave them some research worksheets and some material about Vincent van Gogh that they could look through that was all, grade level appropriate for them to go through. And they had to fill it out to learn more about him. And then they worked together to decide what information was most important that we needed to make sure we put on our bulletin board for our audience to see. And once we had gotten familiar with Vincent van Gogh through that, we as a class analyzed some of his artwork, and his most famous painting is Starry Night. And a lot of them were like, oh, I've seen that painting before. And it was nice to, something that you see all the time and you don't know the historical impact or cultural impact that it's had. And now these students understand, oh, that's why I've seen that painting so many times, or versions of that painting. And we looked at it and we were able to take a deeper dive into the elements of art and the artistic choices he made, and talk about how artists, they're not using words, but they can still communicate with us through their use of color and line and texture and things like that. And so we talked about how, what colors are he using? They're bright here, they're darker here. The lines of the swirls you can see in the painting, and you can even see like how thick the paint is in certain parts because of the texture of the paint. And we talked about the motion he would have to make with his hand and things like that, and how you get a sense of the movement communicated to you through the painting, even though it was made forever ago. So it was really nice to see that students making the connection between the artistic choices the artist made and how we see that. And we also compared his paintings to other types of art like pencil drawings, and how, even if you saw a pencil drawing of the sky, you compare that to Starry Night. They're both pictures of the sky, but they show something very different. So we made a lot of connections with how art is viewed and what it communicates to us, depending on how it looks and the choices that are made in the creation process. Then once we did all of that, we learned about Vincent van Gogh. We've got all this information about art and how the different types that we make can communicate different things. And so as a group, the students settled on, Starry Night's the piece of his that is most important. So that's the one that we want to recreate to put on our display for everyone to see. And I thought this was a good choice. So they worked together on a large piece of poster board and sketched out, and I helped them sketch out and make sure everything, was in the right place. And once we had everything sketched out, they selected the colors that they thought they needed based off the original that I had for them to see, and they worked together to paint their version of Starry Night. They also worked together to make other things to go on the display, because we talked about, okay, so we just have the Starry Night, our picture, and we have some information about him. Do you think we need anything else? And the students thought, it would be a little bland or boring if it was just that. So they came up with the idea of making some decorative lettering of Vincent van Gogh, so you can clearly see as soon as you look at it. As we talked about, maybe there's some students just like you that didn't know he's the one that painted this, or even some teachers that didn't know that, and they need to know when they look at the painting, oh, that's the artist that made it. So they made Vincent van Gogh letters. They also made some stars to put around the picture. And once we had all of our information that we decided need to go on the display, once we had our big recreation of Starry Night and all our decorative elements to go around it, the group had to piece it all together. And so you've got all your pieces, but you've got to figure out, okay, how do I place this on the bulletin board to create a display that looks good, but also communicates what we want it to communicate to our audience, which is anybody walking by that would be walking by in our school building. So that could be a kindergartner, or it could be a 5th grade teacher. So we wanted it to be easy to read. And they decided that the picture should go in the middle, the letters of Vincent van Gogh at the top, so you can see, okay, just like whenever you're working on something at school, you put your name at the top, and then you've got your things underneath. We also decided to put a picture of Vincent van Gogh on the bulletin board. They thought it was important that they also see what the artist looked like, as well as a picture of the original painting. We put some information about him up as well, and our nice decorative stars all around it. And when the students were done, they were very happy with their work, and I could tell that they felt like they did a good job, and they felt like when people walked by it, they were going to enjoy seeing it, but they're also going to learn something. So I think it was a very good way for not only the students to connect to something, you know, like the artwork, but also the people that are going to see it. So they were able to connect with the artwork and share that connection that they made with other people in our school, which I thought was really neat. I had some of the students that worked on it actually told me a couple weeks later that their teacher saw it, asked them about it and what they learned about Vincent van Gogh. So I thought that was really neat. It's definitely something that I'm going to continue doing with different artists, and, you know, throughout the years as I get different groups of students that I think would enjoy that. But yeah, I think it was definitely something that helped the students connect to their art and learn a little bit more about art history and culture, and just how art is a good way at, you know, connecting with other people.